I will just say welcome to everybody. In case you don't know me, I'm Jennifer Benevento. I do professional development for your union at the state federation at the Connecticut level. We're super excited that you're here tonight. This is, I think, an important opportunity for people to learn a little bit about artificial intelligence and why it's something that we need to be respectful of, but not scared of, how it's there to help us, and how it can be really inventive in helping us be creative and reaching our students in different ways. And we're really blessed and lucky that we have Kathleen with us from Rhode Island, and Pete, who's going to be joining us soon as well. I will toss it over to you guys. And if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about what your role is in Rhode Island, as well as the role that you're taking at the national level in terms of the work that we're doing at a national level on this subject area.
Okay. So first of all, my name is Kathy Torregrossa, and I'm a teacher fully released out of the classroom in Cranston, Rhode Island, to just support teachers. And that, changes every year and with every initiative. So right now, a big part of my job is supporting teachers as they experience and try and work with and integrate AI. But I also do all the support around teacher professional development, teacher evaluation, our mentoring program, coaching. I am function as a coach as well. So I have a multifaceted job, but it all comes under teacher support. And I've been doing it for 10 years now, and I absolutely love my job. I can tell you that Pete will introduce himself. He's stuck in traffic, so he'll be joining us in a few minutes, and he'll introduce himself. But I can tell you that Pete and I had started working with AI. There's Pete. We both started working with AI the day it was released. So we'll talk a little bit about our journey a little bit later. So that if you want to try and duplicate our journey, go for it. Maybe you can do things better than we did. But we've been doing this from day one, and it became a passion project for both Pete and I right away. So we're going to talk to you today about just a couple of tools, a couple of things to keep in mind, some age restrictions, and some things that you can put in place tomorrow. And actually, we're going to try and give you some playtime today so you can put in place today and try and develop a lesson today. I will also say that Pete and I are both working with Aft National to develop some AI PD from the national level that will be available. I'm not sure when. I don't know what the timeline is. We've been working now for a couple of weeks on it. So I'm not quite sure where their timeline is on it. It's still a work in development. So it's been an absolutely amazing group of people to work with. So that's coming. So more stuff is coming. Aft has had some incredible partners. We are working with the OpenAI folks. So ChatGPT, the OpenAI folks, we're working with them. We're working with Microsoft. We're working with Conmigo, which is part of Microsoft, but also if you're familiar with Khan Academy. So we've got some really great partners to do this AI work and to really delve deep and make sure that our teachers are well prepared for integrating this into their daily work. So I'm really excited about the work. And so you're going to get a little taste tonight. I just want to let everybody know that we are recording this. I will send the recording to you, Jen, tomorrow. It's also being transcribed, so we will have a transcript of it, so that if you need it for anything, you will be welcome to have that as well. So welcome, everybody. In the chat, if you could just start with, I'm sorry, Pete's here now. Pete, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. Hey, Jen, how you doing? Good evening, everybody. Sorry I was a couple minutes late. I know you were in perfect hands with Kathy, but my name is Pete Ion. I'm fortunate enough to work closely with Kathy. I caught the tail end of what she was saying regarding AI. We have been kind of learning about it, been along this kind of wild ride ever since ChatGPT came out almost 2 years ago now, and it continues to evolve and get better. And obviously, our intentions today is just to share some different tools that we think or we hope you can use and implement in your classroom tomorrow. They are all teacher tools at this point. And once again, I know Kathy had probably spoken about it earlier. Nothing that the students can use just yet because there are restrictions in place for students. But hopefully there'll be at least one thing. My guess is there may be a couple. But at least one thing that you'll be able to take away and hopefully utilize in your classroom to make things a little easier for you. Welcome.
Thanks, Pete. Please use the chat room. As I'm talking, Pete will monitor the chat room. So if there's any questions that come up, if you can do, throw them in the chat, and vice versa. When Pete's talking, I'll be monitoring the chat room, and we'll stop and try and answer as many questions as we can. We really do want this to be more interactive and really meet your needs. So help us out with that.
Assuming you're not on your phone, if you could use your phone and scan that QR code with your camera app, and Kathy and I are just trying to get a baseline of your experience with AI in the classroom. So the first question, simply enough, is have you ever used AI, any tool at all? It could be anything in your classroom. And that could even go for, Gemini, it could be ChatGPT, it could be anything that uses AI. We'll give everybody a couple of minutes. It looks like we have 6 or 7 people now. Seems like everyone's had some experience with it at this point, which is good. Our goal tonight, as I mentioned, is to share a couple of different tools. But Kathy and I are, even though we're presenting this, we're always learners too. So if there are any other tools you like to share, or more importantly, ways that you're using those tools, we'd love to hear them from you at some point as well. So great. For those who are responding, it looks like most of you at this point have used some sort of AI. And for those who haven't used it yet, perfect. You're in the right place for tonight.
Keep your phones open. Don't close out yet.
Yep. We're going to ask one more question after this. Actually, we're going to ask 2 more questions, but there is one right after this slide. All right, perfect. So for those who had responded, most of you, it looks like, have used some sort of AI tool in the classroom. It should have changed on your phone, but if yes, what AI tools have you used? And if your answer was no, then that's completely fine as well. But for those who answered yes, if you could just type in the tools that you have used. You come to the right place. Absolutely. One of the first. Fantastic one. Claude. So your answers, for those who are participating, your answers do become, it's a word cloud, basically. So the more something shows up, the larger it gets. So as you can see, most of the people who are participating or who are answering are saying ChatGPT, which makes sense. Amigo as well. We'll give everybody another 30 seconds or so. Magic School is a good one. They're all actually good. They're all very useful in creating tasks that usually would take you some time to create. Brisk, yep. I know it says Bisque, but I'm assuming you meant Brisk.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to type in some of the ones from the chat room.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, the chat's fine too. Thank you, Kathy, for monitoring the chat room as well. So if the QR code's not working for you, Conmigo, ChatGPT, Magic School. All right. Awesome. Those are some of the more popular ones, definitely. And we're going to focus on 2 today. Sounds like some people have focused on Conmigo. So for those of you that have some familiarity with Conmigo, perhaps we'll show you a couple of different ways to use it, or Kathy will show you. But for those of you who kind of are super familiar with Conmigo, hopefully we have another tool that's relatively new that should impress you as well. But Conmigo is a great one to start with. All right, and our last question is for the tools that you did share in either the chat or the poll, what ways have you used them? So obviously one is lesson planning here. This one's a little different. This will be more of a waterfall of responses, so we'll just be able to see answers as they're typed in. Yes. Whoever put in type emails or provided that answer, absolutely. Differentiation is, if anything, with some of the AI tools, I think there's a closer possibility of being able to differentiate what you teach to all of the students in the different classroom. Not saying that differentiation wasn't possible before, but I feel that AI makes differentiation a lot easier for you. And whether it's leveling down information for students or leveling up information for students, so thinking of it that way. Changing reading level, absolutely. It goes with differentiation. Consider any questions. Reading communication. They seem to be incorporating more and more of these features into a lot of our everyday apps. Not for my school Gmail account, but for my personal Gmail account. I do have Gemini activated, which is Google's version of ChatGPT. I don't know if anyone's seen the commercial recently, but there's a gentleman behind a desk who's kind of pretending to write an email in somewhat slang, and his coworkers are looking at him as he's saying it out loud. But what he's doing is he's typing it out, and then at the bottom of his email, there's a button that says professional, like make it professional. He's sending it off to his boss. So it has to do with an Apple Intelligence commercial, but it makes me think of that. Aligning content to standards. Yes, I'm sorry, Ken. All great ways to definitely use AI. Once again, we're going to show you a couple of different ways, similar to what you've shared with us tonight, but also some different ways as well. The other thing that I like to say, and before we actually get started with kind of the meat of this instruction of this presentation, is any questions at all, either put them in the chat, as Kathy mentioned. I know there's not a large group, so if we happen to overlook your question, please just unmute and ask away, which we're completely fine with as well. But yeah. Okay. Kathy, do you want me to still continue to present, or would you like to take over for this part?
You can probably just leave it there. It's fine.
Sure. Okay.
So it looks like most people have had at least a little experience with using AI. So I don't know whether that meant you're using it professionally or personally, or maybe a combination of both. But let's just talk a little bit about the why. Well, like, why are we here, right? We all probably know now that AI is not going away. It's in our workplaces. It's the thing that it's in the workplaces our students are going to enter. And honestly, our job is to prepare kids for the workplace, and it's here, folks. It's not going to go anywhere. And it's in just about every industry. And I know a lot of people kind of like, oh crap, I don't really want to do this, but everybody needs to take a breath, especially those of us who've been around a while and seen a lot of changes come and go. We've watched that education pendulum swing back and forth. But education changes as the world changes. It always has, and it always will continue to. The one change that has not really happened is our calendar. Our school calendar was developed based on farming cycles. So we go to school from September to June, or in the South from August to May. It's around farming schedules. And even though we're still in large parts of our country we have farming, a large farming industry, we also have a large portion of our country that is not farming industry, and yet that has not changed. So we do have few things that have not changed, and we're still stuck with. But most of the time, we kind of go with the flow, right? And old jobs definitely kind of come around as other things go away. But let's think about a little bit of why we should use AI. But I also tonight don't want you to drown. We use that waterfall graphic for a reason. It's pretty, it's nice, it can be calming, but we also know it could kill you. So like, we don't want you to drown. We want you to understand that there are some tools here that really can make our jobs much easier. They can do things for us much more efficiently. And we want you to just start slow with a couple of things and build your skills. One of the tips that I always tell my teachers is, start with one tool and get really good at it instead of bopping around to a lot of different tools. And always choose tools that really can support student learning, because after all, that's why we're here. But there are, like, we're going to talk about Conmigo today, because there are tools within Conmigo that not only support and simplify the work of teachers and what we have to do, some of those mundane tasks we have to do all the time, but they're also really good tools in Conmigo, excuse me, to build activities for students that are really great. And I just want to get back to like the wave of change that we do. You think about some of the things that we've done, and we all need to understand the pitfalls of what came before and how we are moving forward. But think about, we started with printing presses, and we now have printers in our classrooms, right? Or think about the fact that we at one point, we have maps that came from AAA, and they were all those flip maps from AAA, and now it's right on your phone, right? And you can get anywhere just by looking at a map on your phone. But those are the good things about technology. But there are some bad things, and we need to recognize what those are too. I personally hate the automated checkout. I go to a live cashier every opportunity I can. And in many cases, if there isn't a live cashier, I'll go to a different store. First of all, I'm a union person. I'm a secretary of a union. So I'm going to support jobs. But it also irritates me. I like talking to people. I don't want some machine to do that job for me. So there are good and bad. And we just have to figure out, let's stay away from the pitfalls and figure out how to move this along. Okay, Pete, next. There we go. Oops.
Yep, my bad.
That's okay. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the research behind what it is we're going to do, and then we're going to incorporate the research into what we do today. So there's two things we think about that we can do today or tomorrow with students regarding getting them ready for AI. So our elementary students and our middle school students in Rhode Island, we're not using that for those kids. In Cranston, we just in August approved a policy, upgraded our tech use policy to include that our high school students can use AI, important words here, at the discretion of the teacher, unquote. If the teacher decides they don't want the students using AI, then they set that standard. If the teacher says, I want you to try using AI, I want you to use it in this way, in this tool, for this purpose, and fact check it, then the kids can do that. So we're just opening the window in our district for our high school students. But the precursor to our high school students being able to do it and use AI appropriately is on our elementary and middle school students. I mean, elementary and middle school teachers. They need to focus on digital citizenship and digital literacy. And what I mean by that is we need to teach kids how to be safe online. Like our kindergarten kids need to know, don't share your password. And our kindergarten kids have QR codes to log into their things. Yeah, well, don't use your QR code to open up a friend's, because then whatever they do online is in your account. Like, don't do that. So those basic skills of teaching kids how to be safe online, how to maintain their own privacy online, respecting others while online. Like if you're in a chat room, to be nice to others, just like you would be if you were face to face. Just because you're on the screen doesn't mean you can be mean. And maybe we probably should have done some of these skills prior to social media coming out. So maybe some of our kids would be a little bit better with social media skills. But then the digital literacy piece is that they're comfortable with technology. They know how to turn things on and off and charge them and get from one site to another and close things out and not have a bazillion tabs open at the top like Pete tends to. And to be able to use the technology and understand how it works. Part of digital literacy is understanding, in this day and age, understanding how AI works and having that beginning understanding of that, and that it can hallucinate. And we say hallucinate in, it just fills in the blanks if it doesn't make a connection. And, the AI stuff is a large language model. It's just predicting based on lots of information. And sometimes it predicts wrong. And we have to remember that the human capacity is smarter than that. And we have to fact check. So in essence, these two sets of skills, and we're going to show you some literally standards on these that are out there, is how do you behave ethically online, and how do you develop those skills? And again, we're really trying to have our elementary and middle school teachers work on this level, so that when they get to a point that they're at the high school and they're actually using technology, they're using it in the appropriate fashion. So these are the key aspects of digital citizenship. It's that online etiquette, which we're trying to teach kids to avoid that cyberbullying aspect, and respecting intellectual property. If I write something, my brother shouldn't be stealing it to submit for them as their work 2 years from behind me. That we also leave a digital footprint, that if you're using an online source, it might be collecting information on you, and you should know that and respect that and understand how to monitor that and avoid it when possible. The cybersecurity, protecting your personal information, kids just like to share. Oh, I'll give you this and I'll help you with that. And I don't know if you saw the news that, about 2 months ago, Providence Public Schools, the largest district in Rhode Island, got hacked. And it was through email, and it was somebody sending something somewhere they shouldn't have sent it. And everything got hacked. Our parent information, our student information, our IEPs, all sorts of things got hacked. And the district had to pay for it. Every teacher to have, a cybersecurity network added to their financials, because it was a mess. Well, it was because somebody made a little tiny error and sent something to the wrong person they shouldn't have sent outside of the network. We need to teach kids to do that. That's what digital citizenship is. Maintaining the privacy and security of a district is the responsibility of each individual in that district. And so kids need to understand that. Pause for effect and change. So literacy is a little bit different. Literacy, again, is just to have the actual skills, that they know how to open and close programs and not leave everything open all the time. They understand what the internet can do for them and what it can't, that they can find things if they're looking for information, that they can go out into the internet and find information and bring it back. But the important part of finding that information is then to make sure that that's valid information for what they're researching. It might be really good information, but it might not exactly answer the question they were looking for. And so they shouldn't just be shoving that stuff in. So to be really careful about evaluating and using the information we collect effectively. Communication and collaboration is, again, this is a big one for us, is we want kids to be communicating respectfully when they're talking to kids in the classroom. And we want them to transfer that same respectful conversation when they're online, and really have a conversation with how to collaborate online. We have kids working in Google Classrooms, and they're working collaboratively on a project. Well, just because you're doing your homework collaboratively online in a Google Classroom and you're working on a Google Doc together doesn't mean you can say inappropriate things that you wouldn't say to a kid face to face. Actually having conversations about that. And then the digital creation is using technology appropriately to create content. So there are certain apps that do things really well for schools, and there are certain apps that are inappropriate for schools. Where in Cranston, we have what's called a tech leadership team. And our tech leadership team is constantly monitoring the kinds of sites that our teachers want to use or our kids want to use. And very often we're saying, no, the privacy is not appropriate for kids to be using. So those are base skills, and it's something just to put in the back of your mind when we're playing with AI from the rest of the night. These are just base skills to have in the back of your mind, that we want to be making sure that our kids understand these skills at a very young age. And again, these are the things that we should be teaching our young learners who are not using AI yet, but it's prepping them for using it appropriately and effectively. Okay, so we want to hear from you so that we can kind of answer your questions and respect your benefits and share benefits. And really, why do we bother with all this stuff? So we would just like some of your ideas. So if you would just unmute, there's not that many of us. I think we can unmute and try not to step on each other and just kind of shout out, give us a couple of challenges. Let's stick with challenges first. What are the challenges of integrating AI into the work that we do?
It's Dina. Giving too much information in a way that you're not sure you can handle getting back.
Good. Okay. Too much information.
This is Mary, finding time to explore.
That's a really big challenge, finding the time to explore. Okay.
Teach our students to use AI wisely, not copy paste, and be mindful, be smart about it. Use it to your own profit. It's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's a big one.
So if I could just ask a question on that one. So when you say getting students to copy and paste, you're talking about students using AI to cheat, I'm assuming, just getting information from AI and then pasting it as their own.
Yes.
That's a huge challenge.
Yes. I recently they had an essay on a text that we studied in class, and I have two students that the name of the characters were the same, but the story was completely different, and they didn't even read it. They just copy and paste and turn it in, and guess what? They got a 0 because it was not even close to the story that we studied in class. So yeah.
I'm just coming back for 1 sec, Kath. And by the way, that's one that I think for anyone at the secondary level, you must see, or that must be challenging for you, because I know we see it. Kathy and I have the opportunity to speak to other teachers outside of our district, and that seems to be a big challenge for especially secondary, middle, and high school teachers.
Oh, Sandra, that was a good one. I will add that. Thank you. Sandra said that until we know how to use it, it's hard to then, push it out to students. And that's why you're here tonight.
Hopefully we share something that you'll learn about tonight, Linda.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so we got some challenges. Those are pretty typical challenges. How about benefits? What's the benefit of using AI?
I would say ideally it should save some time, like some of those more menial tasks, and hopefully free up a little more space for human interaction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it does do that for sure.
It may give a new perspective of teaching something. I'm guessing that if you come to AI with a problem, it will throw out some wacky things, but those wacky things can give you some good ideas.
Exactly. So new ideas. Perfect. Any other benefits?
And I think, I'm not sure who just mentioned it, but I think one of the biggest benefits is to, allow you as a teacher to have more time to have that human interaction with your students. And by all means, AI is not meant to replace you, but I think that's a valid point to just emphasize once again. It's hopefully freeing up some more time so you have that opportunity to continue building that relationship with your students.
Any other ideas on a benefit?
Not to monopolize the conversation, but
Okay.
again, I think as our students are becoming more neurodiverse. Our working population is becoming more neurodiverse, and I think that sometimes you have math teachers who are great at math, but they're not the kind who they're not comfortable writing newsletters to parents. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like AI is a place where there's some like adaptive technology for even professionals to, compensate for things that they want to be better at as well. I had written changing the tone of an email because my best friend is a special ed teacher, in charge of special ed now for a district in New York. And she knows that her tone comes across a bit gruff with one particular person who she has a hard time relating well to. So she's cognizant of it and actually uses it to like be very purposeful in making sure her tone is appropriate. And I think that is just, it's interesting even for her to learn when she says, make this nicer, what happened that made it nicer. Do you know what I mean? So there's a learning aspect to it as well. So I think there's that to it. You can learn a lot from it.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's start playing with some tools. I think the next slide is tools. Okay, we should probably do that first. So let me take, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to take this. Let me just go get this link, and I'm going to put this link to the SD standards in the chat room. Here to the chat. Let me see if this works. I'm not sure if I grabbed this link the right way. But check that out and see if, let's see, does that take us to where we want to go? It should. Yes. And yeah, you have to make a copy, but it should take you where you need to go. So the reason why I'm giving you this is because we're going to ask you to play. We're going to ask you to kind of play and try a lesson in Conmigo. And the SD grade level standards, Pete, can you click on that and just open like one of the grade levels?
Yep.
So what we want you to do is, you don't have to wonder, like, when you talk about digital citizenship at second grade level, what does that look like? Or at a preschool level, or at a grade 6 level. So whatever your grade level is, if you could, okay, perfect, that's grade 2. If you just scroll up a little bit, whoops, whatever, you'll see in purple or lavender, I have highlighted for you at every grade level the standards from ISTE, the International Society for Tech Educators. These are big standards, right? These are global standards. These are the standards that deal with digital literacy, digital citizenship by grade level. So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to say, well, what should I have my 4th graders being able to do? What should my 5th graders be able to do? It spells this out for you. You can literally copy one of these standards. When we open up Conmigo, you can copy and paste this into Conmigo and say, I have a 4th grade class. We are working on a social studies unit about X, Y, and Z. And I also want to incorporate addressing this standard, copy and paste the digital skills standard in with my students. And now all of a sudden you have ramped up your lesson, but you're also dealing with those digital skills. You're not asking them to use AI. You're just asking them to do those digital literacy skills, because if you're in the elementary or middle school grades, it's not age appropriate yet. Almost all of the AI is 13 and above, and many of them are 18 above. So this is not appropriate for middle school or high school, but you can copy and paste this and do these basic skills. So I've copied and pasted that link into the slide deck into the chat room for you. So you can open that and you can take a look at that and you can save it so you'll have it. I also Pete, did you share the presentation? Do I see that in the chat room?
I have not shared the presentation
Okay.
yet.
I'll share the presentation as well. So you guys can grab the entire presentation as well.
Perfect.
Okay, now let's go to Conmigo.
Perfect. All right. So I know a couple of people had typed in Conmigo at the very beginning. So we'd love to hear from those people who have played around with Conmigo, but for those who haven't, just give you a kind of a brief overview and try to incorporate some things that Jen had just mentioned and some things that Kathy had mentioned earlier as well. So Conmigo is very similar to Magic School. I saw Magic School in the chat as well, where there are already tools set up for you to do specific things within it, such as lesson planning, such as exit tickets. I know Jen talked about newsletters, easily doing classroom newsletters, but assessments, discussion prompts, and much more. Once again, we'll show you exactly where to go, how to access it, so on and so forth. One of the biggest things that I know a lot of teachers struggle with is explaining the relevance of what they're teaching and connecting it to the real world for their students. So one example I always give is, how do you make an abstract concept like the Pythagorean theorem relevant to 7th or 8th graders' lives today? Especially when they ask, like, why do we need to know this? Or when will we ever use this in our lives? So if you've experienced that before, there are tools within Conmigo that will allow you to put in what you're teaching and help you come up with connections on how you can make it more impactful, more meaningful for the students in front of you. And very easily, Conmigo is a very simple, easy interface. It coaches you to write prompts to get what you want by just asking you a couple simple questions. And then Conmigo will put together a somewhat lengthy result for you there. I want to just get out of the slides presentation for 1 second. When you do get this slides presentation, you will notice that anything in blue, or just about everything in this aqua color, this teal color, is a link to something else. So keep that in mind too.
That's the link to the slide deck is in the chat room.
Perfect. Absolutely. So the link in the presentation should take you to this website, conmigo.ai. It is, but for those of you that might be familiar with Khan Academy, it is from the creators of Khan Academy, Sal Khan. He did have a partnership with Microsoft, if you may, to come up with this Conmigo. And this Conmigo is very similar to, like I said, ChatGPT, but it's using AI to easily create things for you. We've already given you a couple of examples. For teachers, it is completely free. Even though there's a partnership with Microsoft and you may be a Google district, it is completely free. You can easily log in for free, no cost ever. There is a small cost for learners and for parents. Once again, we're not here to promote their product for learners and parents, but there is a pricing of, I believe it's $4 a month if it was ever asked, or if parents or their children, excuse me, were looking to use it. And then for them, it's a completely different interface than the tools for the teachers. But you can sign up for free. I will just log in quickly. Oops.
And can I just say, Pete, that one of the things that I liked so much about the way you guys did it in your district is you were actually very conscious when you're looking at what is available out there for teachers. You don't do things that cost money, because we always know that there isn't that like stream of money to keep things going and going and going. And during COVID, there were so many, digital tools for people to use. It was very overwhelming. And then eventually things started costing money. So I love that the things you're presenting are things that nobody has to go back and bug somebody at their district to be able to pay for.
Yeah. Our district is broke. So, like many other districts. And so we are not paying for anything there mostly because there are really good tools out there that are 100% free. And I'll be honest with you, the very first time I was exposed to Conmigo, I was a little skeptical because it was a Microsoft product. And I'm like, I'm a Google district. What am I going to do with a Microsoft product? And I was won over within the first 45 minutes and now I whenever I sit with a new teacher who's not done anything on AI, my first tool I give them is Conmigo because it is so good and it interfaces easily with Google districts. And recently, about a week and a half ago, they added to Conmigo 3 little tabs at the top of my documents when you've saved something, and you now can export whatever you create in Conmigo directly to your Google Classroom. Creates it, and not to your Google Classroom, to your Google Drive as a document. So you've got a Microsoft product who has listened. They know what that a lot of us are Google districts, and they figured it out, and they've got a tab up there. So everything that you create in Conmigo, if you're a Google district, can go right out to your Google Drive. Seamless.
Yep. No, good point. Thanks, Kathy. Good point, Jen. Anything that we share is completely free. Jen is 100% correct where, there was money being thrown around during the COVID time for purchasing items. A lot of that money has dried up. I know it definitely has in Rhode Island. So anything that we do share, it is completely free. Or if there is a paid tier, we're comfortable enough with the freemium or the free features. We're not asking you to pay for anything at all. In fact, Kathy and I put together a newsletter that we share with teachers at the end of the slides presentation. We'll go over that quickly, but we send that out twice a month, and that has a whole bunch of different ideas on using free tools, new free tools that come out. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But yes, the key term there is free. So if you go to the Explore button, it has all sorts of videos that you'll be able to help you supplement what you're teaching. And then we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but by all means, take a look at this because there are a lot of free resources in Khan Academy for those who are not familiar with it. Conmigo, however, has all of these different tools that you can easily use for a specific purpose. We've talked about lesson planning. We've talked about real world context generator, making it relevant. Here are a list of all the different tools that are available to you through Conamigo. You can star them and make them a favorite for certain ones that you use quite a bit, and you're able to filter that at the very top by clicking on My Favorites. It'll just identify the ones that you've starred and made your favorite. You have the option of looking at all of them, as we just did, or they break them up into 5 different categories of plan, create, differentiate, support, and learn. And those are all different by their color. So if I was to click on differentiate, for instance, it would identify the 5 specific tools for differentiation. I know Jen talked about a class newsletter, so we'll just quickly start with the class newsletter here. As soon as I click on that tool, a new page will open up here, and it's just asking me for a couple of things to create this newsletter. So I'm going to go through the name of my class. I'll just call it Mr. G. What did you do last week? We're going to say picture day, and trip to zoo. So if you notice, I'm just doing fragmented sentences, nothing too big. Next week is a field trip to, we'll call it the Boston Museum of Science, we'll say. And if there are any other specific instructions I want to give this, so let's say the examples it shows at the bottom of the screen, you may or may not see it, but I'm going to just do exactly what it says. I'm going to add a fall season theme, and then I'm also going to include a Spanish translation for parents. And that's all I'm going to do, and I'm going to click start. And you're going to see Conmigo kind of do its magic. So here's my newsletter. You'll notice that there is a brief introduction. You will also notice, first of all, that you have the ability to edit anything on this page. But there's a brief introduction, some completed sentences on what we did last week, what we're doing next week. Couple things to remember. I didn't even put that in there, but you can keep that there if you wish. And then thanking them for their continued support and involvement. And then I also have a Spanish version of that as well. You'll notice that as I go to each section here, there's this blue bar that shows up, and this is on every single one of the Conmigo tools. If I click on that purple tool, it'll open up, it'll highlight this particular section, and it'll say Ask Conmigo. Now, I can click on make changes to this, and it will come up with a different way of saying it. I can try something different, or I can discuss this with Conmigo. And when I click on discuss this with Conmigo, let me just move this off to the side. It now kind of becomes this chat bot, and I can tell it to do or to include different things. So completely customizable, very easy to do, very easy to share what you're doing in the classroom. As Kathy had mentioned, there's the ability now to export. You come up to this top right corner, you can easily share it by copying the link if you send things home digitally. You can print it, or you can export it to your Google Drive, since most of us are a Google district, and I'm not too sure if that is the case. But once it's saved to your Google Drive, you can then at that point upload it, or open it, I should say, in Google Docs. So you have a few more formatting features within Google Docs.
And you can see too there that if you're a Microsoft district, you can share it to you can share it directly to Microsoft OneDrive. So it doesn't make any difference what platform your district is using. This now uniquely integrates fully with those programs. It's nice.
PDF document is an option as well. You know, you don't have to save them to your Google Drive. You obviously can, or to Microsoft OneNote. But if we go back to the main page here, Kathy had mentioned this before, anything that you create, and we're going to talk about a couple more of these in just a second, but anything that you do create, is now going to be found in My Documents. So if you click on My Documents, here is my newsletter. I can just simply click on that and it opens it up once again. So you do have that ability to save it to your Google Drive, once again, if you are a Google district, but it still lives within your free Conmigo account as well. Let's go to, and you see, let's break them up a little bit. So with the plan grouping, you have a class snapshot where you can look at student performance and trends. You've got some discussion prompts. I think that was brought up by someone earlier when I asked that question. You've got exit tickets, lesson planning, lesson hooks, learning objectives, recommended assignments. If I go into lesson plan, for instance, you can simply just describe a topic. I don't know, let's see if we come up with American Revolution. What it is doing is it's taking a look at something that's in the resources in Khan Academy. So it's already identifying something already created in Khan Academy. So if I was to simply click on that link, I don't necessarily have to do that, but depending on what you're teaching, I click Start. I didn't do anything except the American Revolution. And you'll see it's immediately giving me some warm-up activities, some independent practice, teacher resources, some definitions, some extensions on what to do beyond this, required materials. It gives me a summary on how long it may take. Once again, all completely done for you with some links. It will only link stuff that it's found in Khan Academy. So unfortunately, it won't link to anything else, but it will provide you with everything within here. And once again, if it's in Khan Academy, it'll link directly to the resources that you can find in Khan Academy. Similar to the newsletter, everything is editable here. You can click on a particular section. You can ask Conmigo to, once again, make changes to this, try something different, or open up a discussion and then ask it to change things, put it in Spanish, whatever the case may be. Rewrite it. You can actually ask it to rewrite it to make it easier to understand, anything like that. Completely adaptable. It can be changed.
We talked earlier about how using AI to differentiate for student levels is really probably the most powerful part of AI. And Conmigo really does that really well. It translates for you too. So if you could create something and you want it in a different language, it'll translate for you. So so if you could do this whole lesson plan like that Pete just did, and then say, okay, this is a great lesson plan, but I have 2 kids that are reading at a 4th grade level, and this lesson plan is for 9th grade level. Can you adjust this lesson plan so that those students at a 4th grade reading level will still be able to access it? It redoes it for 4th grade, still keeping the same content, the same objectives. So that's using AI for differentiation is the most powerful tool that we've got. It's incredible.
Yep, absolutely. And Kathy had mentioned that the ISTE technology standards. So I had taken one earlier. I had taken the one about understanding the use of passwords and keeping them secure. When I pasted that into the lesson plan topic, there wasn't anything in Khan Academy that it could, pick up on. I didn't put anything else in it. All I did was that standard, and you'll see it here, understand the use of passwords and keeping them secure. Once again, it did the whole thing. It gave me a warm-up activity. It gave me some direct instruction on introducing password concepts and demonstrating creation, blah, blah, blah. Some guided practice, some independent practice. It also created an exit ticket and also did provided some resources around differentiation and some notable definitions. So I didn't type anything in there except I copied and pasted that one specific grade 4 standard about using and securing passwords. Exactly what Kathy was talking about before.
And so just to reiterate, for our elementary, middle school folks, that's what we need to be teaching around AI, is just those standards. And so, but I also, when I do it, I overlay it with a content standard. So I'll say, understanding the security of passwords, but I'm also going to overlay it with other content-based standards. So I can kill two birds with one stone, a digital standard along with a content standard.
Great point. Absolutely. You can put them both in. Absolutely. We talked about how we can make what we're teaching relevant or connecting it to the real world around them. We did the same thing with the same standard about use of passwords and securing them, making sure that we understand we keep them safe. Very similar. Actually, let me take you back one second. Let me go back to the real world context generator. That was one of the, I guess that would be a pink color here, the differentiation. When I clicked on that, once again, very similar, very easy. I had chosen a grade, which was grade 4. I put in the topic. I just pasted once again the use of passwords and securing them safely. And it once again created it generated some ideas on why that's important. So many of us, of course, I'm sure we understand the significance and the importance of password security. But if you're struggling on how to describe or demonstrate or teach young students about that, perhaps this gives you some additional ideas here. Everything, once again, completely customizable, editable. Every single product that's created, you do have those options.
Which is really cool to be able to do that with the digital citizenship skills. But let's be honest, that real world creator, the real world context generator, and the make it relevant tools, and, you know, if you've got a classroom of kids, especially in the middle school, high school, and say, why are we learning this? Well, that's easy. You just dump that content into that, make it relevant or real world connector, and it'll tell you why the kids are learning this. And you can tell your kids, and you don't have to think about it. It'll give you all sorts of ways that that content is going to be used in their real life after school. I just talked about this with we have a high school, a charter high school that we run in Cranston, and I just did a PD. And when I said that, the teachers were like, oh my God, I'm going to be using that every single day because they're constantly saying that to me. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, similarly to the real world context generator, there's this make it relevant tool as well. We once again took the same standard. You'll see anything that is created is on the left-hand side, and it shows you the tool here when it was created. So you see we were messing around with it a little bit yesterday, but the make it relevant tool, you know, taking the password, and teaching them about creating good passwords, it came up with some different games that they could possibly play, or some creating or protecting a video game avatar to illustrate the importance of password security. This tool was slightly different, and then what it asked me to do is to once again identify the objective. But I had in the class profile here, I had just said that my students like to play video games. So as a result, it kind of created this make it relevant information around not only the objective that I identified, but also the interest of the students with, in theory, obviously, if you can somehow get the students engaged in their learning based on their interests or whatever they like to do or hobbies, then there's a greater likelihood that they would be invested in what you're teaching. So now I'm not going to go through every single one of these. However, if you take a look at the groups of them, the planning, all of these 7 tools are around planning something, as I've already mentioned. The creation, I know class newsletter was in that, but if you're looking to do a question generator or looking for some unique report card comments, if you need to write a letter of recommendation for someone, these are all available for you. Rubric generator, if you ever wanted to do a fun class summary poem, that's kind of fun. It makes it a little more engaging for your students. It just asks you for a couple of things like the others have and creates it for you. If there are any special educators with us, you know that leveling something or adjusting it says the complexity of a given text perhaps for someone who's a struggling reader or someone who's an advanced reader, there is that option there. A common accommodation for students who have IEPs is to break larger assignments into smaller, more attainable tasks. Chunking text will do that. We've talked about the text relevance, the relevancy of making what you're teaching relevant to what they're interested in. We talked about the real world context generator, and then be able to rewrite certain text as well, very similar to the leveler. The support, we're not telling you. I know everyone is asked to do their IEPs differently, but there is an IEP assistant that helps you create or if anything, come up with the basics or the baseline, I should say, of an IEP. In Cranston, we're asked to do IEPs a certain way. However, we found that in putting in some information, not identifiable information, but some information about the student that you're servicing, that it created a good present level of performance that some of the special educators could use when writing a certain section of the IEP. Also helps with SMART goal writing. And then for Learn, it will, if you are asked to all of a sudden teach a content literacy class or something that you're not familiar with, you can click on this refresh my knowledge and you just type in what you need to possibly learn, and it kind of gives you a really brief summary of that topic. But it helps you refresh, once again, your knowledge, hence the name Refresh My Knowledge.
Pete, I'm just going to give you a time check. It's 6:05.
Perfect.
Do you want to give folks a few minutes just to kind of play with Conmigo, and then you can go on to the next tool?
Yeah, the next tool is great. I love this next tool. I'm thinking that it's probably not something that you have heard too much about. It's wild on what it does, and I'm looking forward to sharing what it does for you, especially for for all teachers. Let me just say that. But yeah, let's give everybody a couple minutes to maybe mess around in Conmigo. If anyone has any questions, well, let's say we'll give them a few minutes to pick on a specific tool, maybe put something in. Class newsletter, once again, is a great place to start if you're not doing a newsletter, or if you are doing one, perhaps this one's a little easier for you. Sure. How long you want to give, Kath? I see I have 6:06.
I'm going to say like 4 minutes, 6:10, because it really only takes seconds to create something, and we have a really cool tool, and we only have till 6:30.
Sure.
So, yeah,
Sure.
and if you are familiar with Conmigo, pick a tool that you have not maybe played with before, and just try putting something in, because it'll generate it for you in seconds. You could probably do 3 prompts within the next 4 minutes. So we're going to be quiet for 4 minutes, let you have a little bit of playtime, and then we're going to share a new tool that is fairly new. You probably have not seen before.
So Notebook LM, first of all, let me just say that Notebook LM could possibly, if you're using your school Gmail account, it may not be turned on for you. So if you can't access Notebook LM with your school account, I would recommend 2 things. Trying it with your personal Gmail account. If you have a personal Gmail account, you do need a Gmail account. So if you don't have a Gmail account and you want to try Notebook LM and your school has restricted it, then to create a Gmail account, to give it a shot, or talk to your IT director and ask them to turn it on. Once again, for teachers, it is turned on in our district for teachers only, not for students, so that teachers can use it.
And it is free. It doesn't cost the district anything to turn it on.
Completely free. Absolutely. Thank you, Kathy. One of the nice things I do like about it, and I'll open it up in just a second, is it's less likely to hallucinate. And that was brought up earlier. I believe Kathy had mentioned something, or someone had mentioned, I think it was you, Kathy, about hallucinating and making stuff up. Even though AI has come a long way in the last 2 years, ever since ChatGPT. Let's say ChatGPT, it's been around for a little bit longer than that, but for the last 2 years, ChatGPT has evolved. They've gotten better. Gemini has gotten better, but they still possibly can make stuff up when it doesn't know the answer, which is what we use the term hallucinate for that. Notebook is a little different. Even though it uses Gemini to create information, it's grounded in the sense that it will only interact with what you upload to it. And I'll explain that more in a second, but it's less likely, almost impossible for it to hallucinate because it's only looking at what you've given it to look at. So for instance, if I uploaded a Google document and it was on, let's say, the American Revolution, and in a chat, I'll ask about, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? It's going to say, I can't answer that based on what you've uploaded. So it's safer to use in that sense, that it's less likely, almost impossible to hallucinate. The coolest part of it, and I'll go through it in just a second, is its ability to create podcasts. And when I say podcasts, you almost have to hear it for you to understand how good these podcasts are. But I'll give you a quick overview. I know I'm in limited time here. It looks like this. You are able to create 20 notebooks, separate notebooks. In each notebook, you can upload 50 sources. And what that means is I've created a new one. I've even created one on our slides presentation. Let me go back one second. Once you click on Create New, you're going to see the ability to upload anything to it. You can choose an attached file, a PDF, an audio file. You can attach a Google Doc or a Google Slides. You can paste a link for a website or a YouTube link, or you can simply copy something off of a page, a Google document, a PDF, and paste it. You can upload anything to it. Once it is uploaded, you'll see it on the left-hand side. Once again, I uploaded our slides presentation, and once you have it here, this is what I mean by grounded and less likely to hallucinate. All of your sources show up here. And when I ask it a question down here, it's only going to be able to answer based on what I've uploaded to it. So they give me some ideas to ask. So one is explain the relationship between digital citizenship and digital literacy. I will click on that. And not only does it refer back to my slides presentation, but if you notice there are these numbers next to it, and it's basically citing where they got it from. Mm-hmm. So if you have a long PDF document that you have to read or interact with, and you don't want to read a long PDF document, you can upload a PDF document and ask it questions, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And you can, I just want to add that you can add multiple sources. Excuse me. So like Pete only has one slide deck in here, but you can upload multiple sources. And if you ask it to do a summary of all the sources, it'll look at all your sources that you've put in and create a summary of just that. It does not go outside, like Pete said, it doesn't go outside Notebook LM to the web. So that's why it doesn't hallucinate. It's only using the resources you put in.
The coolest part is this notebook. Let me just move this up a little bit, this notebook guide option, because what it will do for you as well, and it will save your note here. So if you've created notes or anything, it'll create an FAQ document, a study guide document, a table of contents, a briefing document, a timeline. You notice it creates this summary here. It gives you some suggested questions. So it gives you a lot of great information that you can share with your students. One of its downsides, unfortunately, is if I click on study guide, it'll take a second to create a study guide. I wish it had the ability to export to Google Docs. It doesn't have that yet. You would have to copy it and paste it. But it gives you this. It gives you some short answer questions with an answer key here, so to help your students, once again, depending on your level of students. Some essay questions to think about. It identified some some key terms, I should say. So it picked out a lot of the things that and I didn't tell it to do. This is just picked out some of the key terms that are in our slides presentation that we've talked about. You have the ability to trash it if you don't like it. But by far the coolest one is its ability to create a podcast. And I've already created one for you. It is linked in the slides presentation. I'm going to play it in just a second. I may have to change the way I'm sharing this because I don't think you'll hear it this way, but let me check.
While Pete's
Share.
doing that, I'll just say that we did create the podcast for this presentation, and so it is linked in the presentation itself. And it's, I think, what did you say? It was about 9 minutes, Pete? Yeah, 9-minute overview. So if you get bored and you're driving home, you can re-listen to us, or just not to us, but you can re-listen to an overview of it. The slide presentation, Tammy, is in the chat room, but I will copy and paste it and put it in again.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can, Dee. Yep.
Okay. What I wanted to ask was about the Spanish, or the language, foreign language, as far as interpretation to a student in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Is this Khan Academy available to use?
So, Conmigo or Khan Academy?
Which one would interpret the lesson to a student who doesn't speak English?
It would be Conmigo, and I will show you how to do that in just 1 second. Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, I'll show you how to. So you're asking to translate a lesson plan to a different language, or anything?
Well, or
correct?
the lesson, or
Yeah.
while we're
Yep.
practicing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second, and I'll show you that. Very great question, though. So hopefully you can hear this. And Kathy, tell me if you can hear this.
Deep dive today.
Yes.
We're going to be exploring how
Yes.
I have it, unfortunately. Did you hear like multiple, like it was echoing a
No,
little bit?
it sounded fine.
Oh, good. All right, I'm going to play it for just a second.
AI can help teachers like you be even more awesome in the classroom.
Yeah.
Really focusing on some practical ways you can use these tools to just boost your teaching and get your students way more engaged. Our source material today is a presentation.
Okay.
It's from Aft, Connecticut, and it's called Artificial Intelligence for Educators, an easy intro into the world of AI in your classroom. Dated November 20, 2024. I got to say, when I was looking at this, I was really intrigued by a couple of the AI tools they highlighted.
Oh, yeah.
Conmigo and Notebook LM.
Interesting.
They seem like they could really be game changers. You know, for things like lesson planning and creating engaging content, and even explaining to students why what they're learning actually matters.
Yeah, I think that's really the key here. It's not just
Yeah.
about the tech itself. It's about how these tools can help teachers do what they already do best, but even better. And the presentation really emphasizes using AI to enhance your teaching, not to replace it.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to stop there, but the voices kind of blew me away. And then not only the voices, but its ability to not only pull the important stuff from the slides presentation, but also on certain topics. And as Kathy and I already mentioned, it's linked in the slides presentation. If you've got roughly 9 minutes, you wanted to listen to it to just quickly summarize what we've done. It not only explains certain topics that we've covered, but it also goes into maybe a little more detail than we've actually gone into. So it's absolutely wild. The last thing I will share with this, or the last two things, is its ability to download it. So if you've got students that are auditory learners, you can come to this 3 dots here, and you have the ability to download it. And then share it through your Google Classroom, or how you might share it with your students there. It also works with being able to translate it. I translated a YouTube video in Arabic for an MLL student at the high school. So you're able to have it speak in multiple languages. It'll only take a second to load this, but it's the same voices, but talking about the second industrial revolution in Arabic. And you can do that in Spanish, you can do that in any language at all, still being able to download it and to share it with your students. And for those of you that think you can use it in your classroom, that idea of like a flipped classroom, like being able to send home, being able to take a worksheet that you're going to go over in class tomorrow, create a podcast tonight or the day before, let's say, Send that home or share that with the students. Have them listen to a 5-minute, a 9-minute podcast, and then be ready to talk about it in the classroom the next day. I think is pretty cool. I've also, real quick, not that I'm going to get into it, but I also tried uploading written notes into it as well, and that also worked. So I took a picture of students' notes. This was on implicit bias. So you'll see the image over here when I click on it. And it was able to read the notes and create a podcast based on what the notes were taken on. So absolutely cool, super, like, I don't know, for the teachers that we share it with, it kind of blows them away because A, it's free, and B, it's kind of sharing stuff with students from a different mode. You know what I mean? So for those students that may be auditory learners, it's a great way to reach them. And even if they're not auditory learners, there are multiple ways that you can use it in the classroom around small group instruction, around flipped classroom, like I talked about. That would also work. So, before I jump back into Conmigo real quick and talk about the Spanish translation, anyone have any questions on Notebook LM?
Or comments or anything else? Because we're about 5 minutes to the end. So anybody have any questions or comments? I will just reiterate, we have some middle school folks that are using these podcasts. As Pete said, they're sending them to the kids at the end of the day and saying, just listen to this on the bus ride home, or listen to this on the bus ride in the morning. And we're going to have a class discussion on this, first thing when class, starts tomorrow. And the teachers are reporting that the kids are more prepared for class discussions and are actually engaged in talking about it because they all, no matter what their reading level is, they're all listening to it. They're listening to the same stuff. And if they need to listen to it in a different language, they can. So they're all coming to the table and to that class discussion with the same basic information. And so the teachers are reporting that their class discussions are richer and more detailed than they ever have been before. We all know that our middle school, high school kids, they love podcasts. It's the way that they live their lives by listening to podcasts. So now we've just flipped it for them and given them a podcast where they're actually prepping for schoolwork, which is really pretty awesome. And it's so simple and you control all the content.
Yeah. And sorry, there's one last thing for any new notebook that you create. You can actually now give it instructions. You didn't see that option because I had already created some podcasts, but where I clicked on load for to generate to play the podcast, the first time you upload something, it'll say to generate audio. Right next to that generate audio, you're going to see a customize button, and that customize button allows you to give instructions to the chatbot to create it in a certain manner. So for the one in Arabic, I had said, please, I put the link in the slides presentation, the exact, oops, I closed out of the slides presentation, but you'll see in the slides presentation, the exact phrase that you can copy and paste in the customize audio window that opens up. And then just choose your language if you wanted it in a different language. You can also say, explain it in simple terms. You can tell it how to create the podcast, ultimately, is what I'm trying to get to. Lastly, I just want to quickly answer the question of whoever asked the question. In Conmigo, no matter what product you create, let's take this one on lesson plans. Or the lesson plan one on technology standards, and this could be anything that's created. Whatever you want in a different language, I talked about this purple bar next to it. You can also prompt it initially. You can say to do it in Spanish, but if you have something already created, if you click on this bar, click on Ask Conmigo, click on Discuss This, which I did mention this. You can just say translate to Spanish. And then what it will do is it'll just do that section. It'll be here. It'll translate it for you, but you can at that point copy and paste it. The other option, similar to the class newsletter, if I go back to my documents for 1 second, is in the newsletter. Initially, when I created it, I said to also give me a Spanish version of my newsletter as well. And it did the whole thing for me initially, the very first time. So yes, it is possible. You just have to let it know to translate it into whatever language.
Then I just, it's at 6:29, so I just want to close this out. Pete, if you could just put your slide deck up for 1 second and just go to the slide on your newsletter, because I think that that's an important resource for everybody to see. And just we'll show them that there's an email at the bottom of that slide that if you email Pete, he will add you to the hundreds of people that are getting his email, his newsletter now.
Thank you.
You send it out twice a month now. And so it's got a lot of tools and information, and you just click on whatever it is that interests you, and the stuff that doesn't, just don't click on that. But the newsletter is always the latest and greatest, the newest tools, the fun things, the academic things, and sometimes they're just silly things to for our own social emotional health, which is some of the things that I click on. And then that's it. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything else?
I want to say thank you both. This was absolutely amazing. I love all the stuff that I learned. There was new stuff for me in here as well. The one thing I will just say to everybody is whatever you create, make sure you read through it, because you just never know what it's going to screw up, because I went and had to do stuff and like add links to things and everything was broken. All the links are broken. So this is amazing stuff, and just always assume it did something wrong and you need to catch that error somewhere.
Yep. No, thank you. Great point. Absolutely, Jen. Always take a look at what's created and make sure it's reflective of what you wanted to say. Lastly, I know Kathy just talked about this. We're trying to respect your time. Hopefully I'll be finished before it's 6:31. Free newsletter here. We send it out twice a month. All sorts of free links in here on different things that you can do. If you wish to sign up, it's completely free, completely voluntary, but this most recent one shared SEL activities, what I am thankful for, Turkey with Google Slides, how to make written, hand-drawn drawing sketches come to life. It animates it. Some bio art clip about Google's newest tool, Learn About. I have a prompt corner where I share different prompts that you can use different chatbots to have it create things such as role playing, rubric creations. For those of you that are maybe more advanced than just using Conmigo, that's there, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Completely free. If you wish to sign up, as Kathy said, we'll send it out to you. You may find something that you can use, you may not, but take a look at it because everything on there is free. So thank you. I appreciate everyone taking time out to join Kathy and Jen and I tonight.
You guys are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And just lastly, our emails are in the slide deck. If you have any questions, please reach out.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll stick around for anyone if anyone has any questions, but email us anytime.